Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life According to Nikki. You guys, this week has felt really long in the best way. I mean, I feel like I've been able to get a lot of things done, but also have a lot of downtime this week. That may come to bite me in the butt come next week because I don't want to say I've been avoiding things because I really haven't. If anything, I've just been really on top of my time management. But I gave myself a little bit of leeway this week to not have 12 things on my plate, but instead to really lock in on the 6 things that I really need to get done. And I think that was a good call because it's Saturday right now. And all day yesterday, which was Friday, duh, sorry, I didn't need to say that. You all knew what the day before Saturday is. But anyways, yesterday I kept thinking it was Saturday. And so today when I woke up, and I slept in, by the way, which was delightful and wonderful, I woke up and I was like, wow, it feels like I was given like a bonus day to this week because I really thought yesterday was Saturday because I was like getting all my normal Saturday things done on Friday. And yeah, I don't know, it felt really good. And I have exciting things to tell you about. I've watched quite a few things. I read a book this week that was not sex ed related. So yeah, I just have a lot of things on my mind, positive things. I think I'm in a good mindset this week. I took a test that about broke me. And in a way, I think that was good. I think the amount of stress that I felt in taking that test really allowed me to release a lot of stress that I've been holding. Once it was finished, I was like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's just like get rid of all of this anxiety. And I'm feeling much better. I'm feeling like I have a clearer head. So with that, let's play my intro song and get into it. Are we kidding? Oh my gosh, I love that. Starting up at the top, let's talk about this test that I took this week. Now, in my degree, as I explained, I believe, last week, if memory serves, I don't really have a lot of tests. Normally, I just have 2 papers that are due per class, each worth 50% of my grade. These are like 15, 20-page papers. There's a lot of criteria to them. They have to have, 20 to 25 minimum peer-reviewed sources, blah, blah, blah. Or, as they say here in Australia, rada, rada, rada. Which I actually really like that. I really like that. I want to change to rada, rada, rada. Okay, anyways, moving on. The only other time that I've had tests, like, what you normally think of when you think of a test of multiple choice or something like that, was in my, health and reproductive sexuality course. So that one, was much more medical centered. It was all medical, actually. So that one was structured, true and false, multiple choice, going through the different phases of the menstrual cycle and, follicular phases of, no, not follicular, what am I saying? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking so hard right now, with the ovary, when it's a blastocyst, and then it is released, and then the progesterone and the estrogen. What is that called? Ovulation. Oh my god. Ovulation in the ovaries. Duh. Okay, I really do. I swear I know this. I was like picturing in my head the circle, and then it has all the little circles inside, and then I always had to look away when I got to the blastocyst section, because the blastocyst, that one, picture-wise, you know what? I don't even want to talk about it, because it's going to make me gag. It's trypophobic in its imagery, okay? A blastocyst that you draw and that's on, like, I don't know, in textbooks. Yeah, I'm having a problem with that. I really, really am. Oh my gosh, so it was terrible when I had to, like, look at those images and talk about them, and I'm shaking, I'm gagging. I'm sweating. I'm not doing well because I'm, like, face to face with my phobia. The things I do for the subject I love, you know? I really wonder if there's like a nurse out there that hates blood. Did you see where my train of thought went just now? I didn't explain it, but I feel like you caught that jump. Yeah, like I wonder if there's other professions. Maybe there's like a welder that really doesn't like the noise of the welding tools or something. Or maybe a dentist that like loves everything there is to love about teeth and stuff, but maybe they really don't like the noise of something or the texture of something, and they just like put up with it because this is the thing that they love to do. I bet that's true. There's got to be people out there. So just know, in my field of study, there's 2 things that I put up with because I love the subject, but please, I beg of you, do not have me look at images of STIs. Please don't. I don't want to do that ever again. I once took a test where I had to identify the STI based on the image, and, you know, it had... Sorry. Had a flashback. Okay, I need to stop talking about this because, oh my gosh, the toast I just ate is like not feeling settled anymore. It was a horrible test. Just know that. I did pass, but it was horrible, and I believe I threw up after. Probably. Yeah, I blocked it, clearly. It was a traumatic memory. Oh gosh. Okay. Where was I? This test that I was taking. So this particular test, it was terrible. It was horrible because it was just a dumb format, I think, personally, for a test. So I'm fine with a multiple choice, true, false memorization type thing. I do pretty well with those, and, you know, not to brag, but on the e-tests for that unit not the STI one, the previous one that I talked about, the reproductive health, I think it was like 45 questions. I think I got 43 out of 45. So, yeah, your girl knows about the reproductive organs, and and I would hope I do, because that is in large part what I specialize in. Has to do much more on that side of sexology, like the body and how it works and functioning, and you know, maybe someone on a different side in therapy or something didn't do as well, but I nailed that test. Then my papers and stuff, I do okay. I mean, I don't do badly on my papers. You'd probably guess I did based on my terrible grammar just then. I do okay. I'm very average on my papers. Occasionally I get a paper that has like a high distinction, which is like honors here. But honestly, I'm just trying to pass, and I don't really enjoy writing the papers. So, you know what? We'll take average. I'm never close to failing, if that is any indicator. So like failing here, or I guess passing here, is 50, which is insane to me. That is passing. That's crazy. So 50, and if you get like a 60, everyone's like, that's super good. That's really hard. So I usually do like 60s, sometimes 70s. One time I got an 80. Actually, let me talk about this for a second. I got an 82, I think, on a paper, which, again, American standards, it's like, girl, why you bragging about a B+? Let me tell you, an 82 in a master's program in Australia, girl, that's like equivalent to 110 in the US, all right? We are on different standards over here. And the paper that I did really well on, and the professor wrote me a note telling me how great I did. You know what, actually? I'm going to pull this up. I want to read what my professor said about my paper, because I was really proud of this paper. It was on pornography, okay? And please hold. Oh, wait, no. Was it my pornography paper? It might have been on sexuality education. Please hold. I'm going to go check. Okay, everybody, I found it. It was not on pornography. I did write a paper on that, and I did pretty well on that. But this one was on sex negativity. So I wrote an entire research paper on sex negativity, And at the end, we had to do a reflection because this was from my culture and contemporary sexology class, basically seeing how, different ideas exist in the world and our personal opinions on it. Because when you're writing an academic paper, at least the ones that we're writing, there's not a lot of room, if any, for a personal opinion. In fact, actually, I would argue there's no room for a personal opinion. Everything you say has to be backed up by other people. Like, you're just regurgitating what's already been said and just summarizing, like, what is the truth of the research in whatever topic you're talking about. And your opinion on it is pretty much irrelevant. But in this particular paper, there was an element that they wanted us to write a reflection about the material with our own opinion, where we could use, I, me, whereas you can't do that in academic writing. So I'm going to read you my reflection on this paper where I wrote about sex negativity. This is it. Ready? Here we go. I chose sex negativity as my topic due to my deep personal connection with its framework. I grew up in a highly religious community where chastity was taught as the defining characteristic of personal value. The only formal education I received on the topic of sex was taught through an abstinence-only curriculum that only focused on the negative effects of STIs. Where this type of teaching brought shame and guilt to many around me, it deepened my curiosity about why sexuality was such a taboo topic and how it could be simultaneously the greatest thing you could ever experience and something so terrible and bad that it's not allowed to be discussed. My research into the historical roots of sex negativity, particularly the early Christian doctrine I discussed in this paper, sheds light on the origins of its framework. The idea that a woman's body and its desires were antithetical to her spirituality and virtue was not just a message I heard from my community, but rather it was a familiar script that was institutionalized centuries ago. The concept of Eve's lust being a catalyst for original sin, and the guilt and shame associated with it, is a guilt I know many in my community face regarding their feelings of sexual desire, regardless if those feelings occur in or outside of marriage. Their presence in any context can cause a debilitating amount of shame that affects both parties in the relationship. The irony is that while I was being taught to fear and control my sexuality, the media and pop culture were sensationalizing sexuality to be something trivial or exploitative. My paper discusses the paradox of hypersexualization in a direct reflection of this experience. The media I often consumed primarily painted women as sexual objects, which relayed the message to me that the value of a woman is found in their sex appeal to others. It created a situation where my sexuality wasn't my own. Instead, it was this thing I was supposed to hide, but also a commodity I was expected to use to gain social value, even if only through physical appearance. This is the point I wanted to highlight within my paper, demonstrating that sex-negative frameworks can often be disguised as sex-positive. At first glance, they may seem liberating, but they can actually promote the same harmful ideas, just in a different way. My final point touched on the benefits of comprehensive sex education. It gave examples of countries where sex education material is fully presented and results in lower teen pregnancy and STI rates. This is a direct contrast to the abstinence-only education, which tries and often fails to achieve the same goals. This has solidified my belief that a comprehensive, sex-positive framework is essential for public health and psychological well-being, especially when it comes to the well-being of women. By teaching a healthier perspective on sexuality, it will enable individuals to have more bodily autonomy, lessen the exploitation of women, and help individuals overcome shame and guilt. Guys, not bad, right? Sometimes I read my stuff back and I'm like, okay, you know what? I was cooking. That was actually great. I'm glad I wrote that. That was awesome. And the professor, so I have like the marker, the person who like grades the paper or whatever, and they, said it was good and I had a good reflection. But my professor actually told me, well, I think he wrote it. I think it's in my email, actually. I should have looked for that. But whether it was in my email or whether he told me personally, don't remember. I know, but I know that these words came from my professor themselves rather than just the marker of the paper, because usually that's not the same person. But my professor told me that that reflection and the reason I picked the topic and my view of it was really, I mean, in his word, it was like really good, and that I did a really great job expressing myself through my paper and through the research that I highlighted. Anyways, it was just really nice. It was a nice thing to be recognized for what I was doing. And I mean, I spent a lot of time on that paper, as I do with all of mine. I ended up getting an 84 on that, which, guys, again, that's really good in Australian standards. So, you know, I consider that a A++ on the American scale. If an 84 in Australian scale, yeah, it's impossible to get 100. It's impossible to get a 90 here. It really is. You have to be someone that, I don't know, has done their PhD, has written a million academic papers. Like, this is your profession, and then you just happen to be coming back to school. Like, you have to already know how to do this at such a high level in order to get a 90 here. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid. But, yeah, it was nice to have the recognition of my professor on my subject matter and saying that, he did say that this is one of the best papers that he has had written on sex negativity, because it is a common topic that's selected, but that was something that really stood out from what he said to me, was this was one of the best ones that he had read. So that was great, which also I was like, okay, this must have been pretty good for it to be passed on to my professor, because again, the person who marks the paper is not them. They have PhD people that they pay to mark these assignments. So it must have been good enough to pass on to the man in charge. So that was cool. But yeah, this test that I took, now that we're 16 minutes in, was not like this. It was not a question and answer. It was not a paper. Instead, it was kind of like this weird combo thing. So the setup was, it was, I think, 17 or 18 readings that we had to do on comprehensive sexual education, which is a curriculum that's taught worldwide. It's the most successful, as I actually just talked about, because that's what my paper on sex negativity, it focused on how sex negativity is often taught through abstinence-only curriculum, and that if we actually are able to present all the information to students, and especially to youth and like children, at age-appropriate levels, of course, but if you're able to allow them to know all the information that is available to them, then they actually statistically choose the route that you would prefer them to choose, which in most cases, for most adults, religious or not, is abstinence. That is waiting to have sexual relationships. And you have to show that you trust them. So you need to give them the information. I think that there is just a huge lack of trust that is going on between like adults and youth and children. Like, you need to trust them. And on a religious sense, I'm like, God trusts us so much to make the right choices. Absolutely. They trust us. So why don't we have that same trust in each other? Like, if you are a parent and you are modeling good values because you just live them and you are secure in your own sexuality, your kids are going to be able to tell. And then when you present to them their options and be like, look, there is this option to wait and until you're a little bit more mature, until you're in an established relationship built on mutual trust and emotional intimacy, and that can yield better results, and it is far less riskier to you on many, many levels. Or there is this option that you can go out and you can have sex, and if you're going to choose that option, I want you to do it in the safest way possible. And if you model and have the value of the choice that you would hope your child would make, they're going to be able to map whether or not that is a choice that they should make, whether you've made it look like a really great one or not. Because here's the thing, if parents are going around being like, you need to wait until marriage to have sex, and like you can't do anything, and it's, they're freaked out by any sort of topic of sexuality, they won't talk about it, they're nervous around the subject, whatever. Then when you tell your child, like, it's a beautiful thing, so you want to wait. You don't make it look very beautiful, Karen. Like, what do you mean? You and Greg don't make it look super fun. You're saying that it's like this amazing, incredible, beautiful thing, so you should wait. But you don't look super happy. You don't look like this is just like giving you life. But you're telling me it will for me? I don't know. Doesn't really feel like it's lining up here. What you're saying, the message you're giving through your actual life and the way that you live it is not lining up with what you say. And then this topic making you so nervous and so scared and so anxious. I don't know. It's kind of making me feel like you don't know what the heck you're talking about, because you clearly do not feel comfortable with this, and you waited, and like you're how old are you? You're like 38 and you're still uncomfortable? That feels weird to me. This is me talking as like a 14-year-old. So it's like, you know what? I'm not going to really trust what you're saying, so I'm going to go do what I'm going to do, and because I can't actually have a real conversation with you about it because you're too anxious and I can't hold on to your anxiety plus my own, I'm just going to go, like, figure it out on my own. That's what's happening. Rather than, hey, little Billy, come on over here. Let me teach you about how this all works, the risks involved in both scenarios. If you're, someone that's teaching abstinence only, okay, great. But you need to understand the risks of both waiting and not waiting, okay? Spell out that information, leave room for questions, and don't just have one conversation. It needs to be a lifestyle. It needs to be a way of living that your children can come to you and talk to you about this topic. But more importantly, they can observe you and watch you and say like, okay, mom, dad, they're saying that, this is probably what's best for me. And I see that they care about me and that they seem pretty happy and well adjusted. And this topic doesn't scare them. And you know what? That's actually, I feel like I want what they have. Like this is a pretty great life they've given me. Like isn't that so much healthier? But in order to get to that place, we need to have healthier adults with healthier attitudes around sexuality in order to really help little Billy. So, my paper was all about why we have to have comprehensive sexual education, talking about good relationships and not just focusing on like the terrible, horrible things. If we approached healthy eating from the approach that we do sexuality, where we just bust in and we're like, let me just terrify everyone in here. If you eat sugar, you are going to die, okay? But before you die, you want to know what's going to happen to you? You're going to get heart disease, and you're going to get fatty liver, and you're going to get this thing, and you're going to get this thing, and you're going to be fat and ugly and all this. If you said that, oh my gosh, first off, not true, like just so unfactual. But just healthy living and healthy eating is not the absence of sugar, in the same way that healthy sexuality is not the absence of sex. Okay, because then we miss the whole freaking point, okay? Because sugar, going back to the food, sugar is a delight. It is the pleasures of the food. There's a lot of different food that can bring you pleasure, but when you have a healthy relationship with food, when you are not repressive and goes into, restriction, which often leads to eating disorder. There's no way that it doesn't lead to an eating disorder. Like, it will, because restrictive, you place guilt and shame, and then that means things about you as a person, and then you just become obsessed with food. Obsessed. It's all you think about. And I'm talking from someone who knows. I know this story well. Lived it myself. Like, nothing was more on my mind than food and eating, not eating, how other people looked, my body, other people's bodies. It was just like, it was so consuming and so much shame, it was awful. It was horrible because I had this unhealthy relationship rather than, okay, look, little Nikki, we want you to have a healthy lifestyle. Something that brings you joy, because food is such an accessible thing, and it is something that absolutely should be bringing you joy. It is something you need to live. You were born with this inherent hunger in you, and that compels you towards food. And we want to make sure that we are wise in, decision making, and that we are putting in foods that can help fuel us, that get us to be the type of person we want to be. If you're going to go run a marathon, you're thinking about the types of foods that you're going to need to eat that will help you to accomplish that goal, right? Yes, and there's going to be some restriction involved, but there's also, it's healthy. You need to be able to have a good relationship where you don't freak out when someone brings out a tray of cookies because you're so scared and anxious that you're oh my gosh, I can't have that. I shouldn't have that. Rather than, I'm a healthy person, so I have the power to make a decision right now. What are my goals? What am I working towards right now? Is this cookie going to, bring me closer to them? Is it going to take me away? Is it going to have no effect? What do I want? Being so scared and terrified of pleasure is not a good way to teach anything at all, because then you're so scared of anything that makes you feel good, and that's a terrible mindset to have and way to think about life, because life is meant to be enjoyed, okay? But we don't want to feed, this overindulgence in us of just oh my gosh, I love cake, so I'm just gonna eat the whole cake. Okay, that's not a healthy mindset. Having a piece of cake and enjoying it, that's not unhealthy. That is actually very healthy, because you're doing things in moderation. You're doing things thoughtfully that fuel you and that do bring you pleasure, and you're able to have a good relationship with all of it. And so then you don't feel this intense guilt when you eat a piece of cake, because you're no, you know what? I'm a healthy person. I make good choices. I trust myself. That's so different than someone who is just so scared of sugar, of what it's going to do to them, of how they look. They're so concerned with just these tiny things. We do that in the same way with sexuality. We do. Where if you're it's just the absence of sex is, if you talk about sex at all, then all of a sudden everyone's just gonna go out and start having freaking orgies. No! They are 14 years old! Calm the frick down. That's not, I don't know what you think about kids nowadays, but let me tell you what the research says, okay? The research says they want to know what mommy and daddy think. Okay, as much as you think your teenagers don't want to talk to you, whatever, research says different. And guess where the research is coming from? From the mouths of your children, okay? They do want to learn. They do want to understand. They want an open space where they can ask these questions. They want a healthy relationship because they see a lot of times how unfreaking healthy you are with it. And so they're whoa, I don't want to be like mom or dad or whoever, because they clearly do not have this handled. And you want to know, the kids who grow up with parents who actually have just a healthy outlook, that it's an open conversation, it's whatever. You want to know how well adjusted those kids are? They're great. They make safe decisions. So if they do have sex, which again, not a problem, but if they're having sex, they're doing it safely. They are negating a lot of risk that they are taking. Okay, whereas if you don't teach any of it at all, you're just setting your kid up for failure. And also, very, very big point, you are also setting them up to be a victim of a perpetrator. So just think about that. So I feel very passionately about this, obviously, because it's just, the absence-only curriculum is the least reliable and least effective to actually yield the results of the curriculum itself, which the curriculum is lower STI rates, lower teen pregnancy, all that. The least reliable. That is research backed. I could give you just so many articles. There is not a single effing article that is gonna tell you that absence only is the best, because the research does not back that up. Numbers don't lie, babe. The most effective for lowering STI rates, lowering teen pregnancy, lowering HIV, all of this, it's comprehensive. It is allowing children and teens and young adults to have the conversations, to have a space to do it, and for them to reflect and have bodily autonomy of what they're going to do and the decisions they're going to make, and to build resilience and trust and confidence in them. That's what you really want to do. You want to help them build confidence that they can make good choices regarding their own body and what they're going to do with it, and that they can stand up for themselves if someone is coercing them, you know? But if we don't teach them any of those skills, then that's on you, parents. That's on you, because you were so nervous and anxious and scared. You gave your kid no freaking chance. And then what, you're mad at them? You're mad at them for their curiosity? You could have answered their questions and we could have avoided all of this. Because again, kids who grew up in homes where like this was like just an open topic, you want to know, they're the least sex obsessed. They're like, this is so whatever. This is, oh, okay, my gosh, do we always have to be talking about this? Like, it's just so, it's in the same way that people who grew up in homes where there was just like a bowl of candy out, they're like the least likely kids to have a problem when it comes to sugar, because it was just always there, accessible. So then they were able to make decisions around it. They were able to build confidence in themselves and their ability to make a good choice. Oh my gosh, I need parents to understand this. Like it's so frustrating reading these studies about abstinence-only education and how detrimental it is and how it's so well-intentioned, but it actually does the exact opposite of its intention. And it's so frustrating because it's like, it's not just people that I'm reading about, you know, abstinence-only. Like, this is my community. I think that's why I feel so passionately, why I'm like, can I make it more clear? Like, is there a way that I can paint this picture to be something that you understand? Because you're clearly not getting it. You are not understanding what's at stake here. And what's at stake is there's a lot, actually, but it's your children. Your children are at stake. You, yourself, the life you're going to live, the pleasure that you're going to have or keep yourself from in life. That's what's at risk. So we need to get more comfortable, and we need to stop being so freaking sex negative. It's not negative to talk, like, no. And then also the opposite, as my paper mentioned, saying that, like, sex positive is only sexual, we often paint it as, like, sexual exploitation, that, like, in order to prove that you are sex positive, you must be displaying that to everyone, like your sexuality. Again, that is just a sex negative narrative painted differently. Like, you're doing the same freaking thing. It's oppressive. It is oppressive. Okay, we are once again not allowing someone to make a choice. We're saying you have to do this in order for you to send the message to everyone else, rather than just, you know what, I'm going to do me. I'm going to feel comfortable and confident over here, and I don't care what you think. I don't care, because my sexuality is not for you to judge. And it's not yours to own either, because it's mine. And it's not yours to take. So, yeah. Okay, wow. Just really got on a tangent there. This test I took. I did all these readings. Can you tell that I read a lot of papers on this subject? Which I've read tons before, because I've written multiple papers on this now. So, I was supposed to do like 18 readings. I did 7 like solid readings, because all of these are multiple pages, sometimes 20 pages of, you know, material that I'm reading. So I figured I would do the 7. I took a bunch of notes. I spent all morning, it was like 4 or 5 hours I spent reading, taking notes, preparing, and then got on, decided to take the test. And it was a 1-hour timed test. I log in, click start. I knew it was going to be a free answer, but I guess I just didn't anticipate how fast that time was going to fly, because it does take me a while to write a paper. So they gave you 2 scenarios, and oh my gosh, now I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah, so they gave 2 scenarios, and it was like, okay, you're either teaching a 90-minute workshop to like ninth graders or a 90-minute workshop to 20 to 60-year-olds. And I was like, okay, I'm going to choose the ninth graders because all the stuff that I read, all the material was all about in-school programs and the different elements that you need, blah, blah, blah. And then it said, what are the 4 considerations that you're going to have for your workshop? And you have to cite all your sources from the readings that they gave you. But guys, this is where I went wrong, is when I scrolled to start typing into the text box for the first consideration, it made the timer scroll up to where I couldn't see. So I write my first text box. I finally get it where I want it to be. I think it's been 15 minutes. I was like, okay, perfect. I feel really good about this. I scroll up to see what time I'm at. 30 minutes has gone by. I'm only on question 1. There are 4 questions. I have 30 minutes left. So just from the start, I was like, oh my gosh. So then I'm panicked. So panicked for the other 3. I'm trying to figure out like, what are my considerations? What's important? What do I really need to focus on? Blah. And, I'm trying to cite my sources. I'm trying to cite multiple sources. So it shows that I did read everything. And, you can't just cite like 1 or 2 sources. They want a variety. But it's like, then why'd you give me only an hour? This is so dumb. And luckily for me, I type super fast. I'm a super fast typer. But I can't even imagine how difficult this must have been if you're a slow typer. Because at least with me, the thing that takes me so long to write a paper is I have 12 million ways I want to say it. And I don't know and I get caught up in the what's the best way? What's the best verbiage that I could use? Like, is there a different way that I could say this a little bit better? So I get caught up in the perfection of it all, rather than just like trusting that it's okay. I want it to sound smooth. But I type really fast, so I can do that quite quickly with how quickly I think. My hands keep up pretty well. I should take a typing test. Actually, the last time I did, it was 75 words a minute was my average with all my mistakes and stuff. I think it was like 82, but then, with all the spelling errors and crap or whatever, it takes it down to like 75. But that is something. I have good dexterity, and I am a fast typer. I tested out of my typing class back in junior high. You know what? We'll get back to that in a second. I'm talking about this test that it's taken me 37 minutes to talk about, so we'll do that first. So anyways, I'm typing and I'm stressed, so then I do the next ones. I finished that test with, it was like, I don't know if it was 30 or 3, something like that, seconds to spare. I was just, my heart was racing. I can't even tell you how many spelling errors I must have had. Because there was no spell check on the thing. Oh my gosh. I'm really worried. But also, what a stupid design for a test. That's so dumb. And to only give an hour for the 4 answers, and, I feel like you're not taking into consideration people who type slow, for one. But also, how are you grading that? How are you going to grade that? That seems really stupid to me. I was not happy with how that test went. It's only 20% of my grade, so I'm just praying that I pass. But I have no idea. When I was done, though, I felt so shaky, and my adrenaline was pumping. Absolutely pumping. And I just feel like it was a big weight off my shoulders, though. As I mentioned in the beginning of this pod, it was like all the anxiety that I've been feeling all week in anticipation for this test and just everything that I have going on this week. Once that was done, that was the biggest thing that I needed to cross off my list. And I was really proud of myself because I did say to myself, I was like, girl, you need to wake up early and you need to read all these readings because you haven't done it. And you're going to take notes and you're going to take this test. And I didn't use ChatGPT at all. Okay? I was a real big girl that used my critical thinking hat, and it was much harder. But that was something that I felt like I needed to do, because even just in my note taking, truly, because I feel myself getting a little dumber. I do. I feel myself struggling of self-doubting so often when I'm writing something or even talking, really. I think it's translated into every aspect where it's like, oh, is there a better way that I could say that? Like, is there more, I'm overdoing it because ChatGPT would be able to really succinct this down. And you know what? I think it is helpful. There's a lot of things it can help with, but I think I'm overusing it, as with most people, especially if you're in academics right now. It's a real risk that you're taking. And I am just taking a little assessment, that I think I am overusing it, and I'm spending so much of my time coaching the AI to do something for me rather than just thinking about it a little bit longer and doing it myself. So that was something for this particular reading and test, I told myself, you know what, you need to reset. You need to do this without any assistive technology. You need to be able to read a paper, figure out what it's saying, comprehend it, write it in your own words, take some frickin' notes without, plugging the paper into ChatGPT and saying, like, summarize this for me, or like give me the best points, which is a great use of AI, especially now that, we have so many articles we have to read and all this stuff in academics. It really does help. I'm not saying that that's bad, but I'm just saying for myself, I think I've taken a little bit too much advantage, and so then I'm not actually learning. I'm not digesting the information. But once I do digest it and I chew on it for a bit, well, then, you see what happens here. I went on a 25-minute tangent because I'm like, let me tell you what I learned. Let me tell you about this information that's been digesting for a while and my personal thoughts on it, because it wasn't just produced by AI. Like, this is my own thoughts regarding the literature that I read and the studies and research that is out there. So I think it's valuable to reset, take a moment. I do highly recommend deleting Instagram off your phone. That has been life-changing for me. Really, really great. I never have it on my phone unless it's like a little sweet treat for me. It's the pleasures of life. I'm having a healthy relationship. This is what I'm talking about, because it was just ruling my life. Like, I could not have a healthy relationship. I'm so addictive in my personality that I have to put, guardrails in place for myself, because I know me and I know what I like and I know my triggers for my addiction, because I am a highly addictive person. Highly, highly, highly. And because I know that, I have to really implement a lot of, restrictions for myself to help keep me in a good place, healthy, so that when I do indulge, when I do have an hour or half hour on Instagram, it is delightful and I feel zero guilt, because it's off my phone all day. I have no way to access it through my Internet Explorer. I made sure to disable that. So it forces me to get my crap done, and then when I want it, I'm like, okay, did I do everything I was supposed to do today? And when I do, it's just, it's such a great reward. It is so good. And that hour of scrolling or half hour of scrolling, oh my gosh, it hits every time. It's like dopamine. Well, it is dopamine, or doping. That's what I meant to say. It's like doping. I am just, oh my gosh, yes. I freaking love it. It's been so great. My next step is I'm going to get an app that disables YouTube Shorts, because I really do like watching a long format YouTube video, because it's very similar to TV, movies and stuff for me. But I have found myself getting on the YouTube Short train, and I'm like, no, we are not just switching platforms for the addiction, okay? No, this is not healthy. This is not good. And this week because I had Instagram deleted. I always have Instagram deleted. But it allows me to do the things that I need to do without feeling this like itch to get on my phone and look at Instagram. I mean, it's still there, but then when I scroll and it's just not on my phone, it's like, oh, okay, well, it just quickly diverts me, you know? You get me? You feel me? Yeah, isn't it funny that we have to like put things in place for ourselves like we're a grown toddler? Yeah, that's me. All right. Thanks for sticking with me through that huge rant and everything. Can we talk about my typing really quick? Guys, this is something that I actually do feel very proud about, is my typing ability. When someone says that I type fast, I don't know, it makes me smile and it makes me feel like this surge of pride. It's, I don't know, it's not really important at all. But, I don't know, it just feels like a real sweet moment, and I really like that particular compliment. When someone is, I don't know, next to me or behind me or something, when I'm typing, at work or something, if someone's coming up and they're talking, and I'm taking notes about what they're saying, and I'm, verbatim writing what they're saying, and then afterwards they tell me, like, wow, you type really fast. Thanks. Oh, shucks. Thanks. It's kind of a special talent of mine. I have horrible spelling. If I could spell well, I'd be, what is that called? It's not a stenographer. Is it a stenographer? The person that does the court typing? Who does court typing? Is Google gonna know what I'm talking about? Verbatim stenographers. Is that what I said? A stenotype. I think so. Yeah, anyways, I think in another life I would have done that. That would have been cool. I knew this girl one time. Sorry, I should say I knew this woman. I'm working on that. Because I realized how often I say girl, but it's not like I say boy. You know what I mean? I say like this guy, which to me that ranges. That could be any age. But again, why do I specify that it's, this guy, but it's a girl, even though it's someone like literally my same age? I'm not a girl. I mean, I am. I'm just a girl. But you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to like work on my verbiage and just catch myself. So this woman that I know, grown woman, incredible, amazing, has so much to offer the world. And she's so talented. She was in one of my wards, my young single adult wards back in Utah, and her job was to take live notes for students who are deaf. And it was all online. It was such a cool job. I wonder if AI has kind of made it obsolete now? I don't know. Probably. If not now, very soon. But sick job. What she would do is... So the students would sign up for this program. It's like free for the student, but of course she is paid through the school for this service. They sign up, so she picks what student she is going to be with for the entire semester, and she attends all their classes with them, obviously, fully online. So she just logs in, zooms into the class. The professor wears a microphone, so the student just like goes in, hands them the mic, and then she puts in her earphones, and she is on Zoom, and she just, as the professor speaks, she takes notes. And it was such a fascinating conversation that I had with her, where I was like, that's actually so cool, because she never went to college herself. But I'm like, that's honestly kind of lame, though, that you don't get the degree, because you went to all of these classes, and you were the one paying the most attention out of every single person, because you were writing verbatim what that teacher was saying. And she said that she's really interested in, like, the medical field, and so she would choose students that were doing medical classes. It was just awesome. I was like, actually, I think you hacked the system, because the only thing is, I think there's a world in which she deserves a degree. Like, she 100% could have taken those tests. Absolutely. And gotten the grades just from her job. That's so sick. I think she should have I don't know, talk to them about that. So she would choose, people in like neuroscience classes. She would just choose students that had a class schedule that interested her. And then, yeah, she would be their like dictator. Is that dictation? Yeah. Yeah. Why am I'm just doubting all sorts of stuff today. She would just write what the professor said, and yeah, pretty sick. Pretty cool job. And then I asked her if she was going to be a stenographer, because she types, oh gosh, how much was it? It was something insane. It was insane. It was like 120 words a minute or something like. It was like, I remember jaw on the floor. Could not believe someone could type as fast as she types. And I was like, oh, dang, I thought I was fast with 75 words a minute. She's over here with like over 100. It was something crazy like that. I want to say it was 120. Is that even possible? Oh my gosh. I want to look this up. I want to know how many words per minute is a lot. Let's see. 60 to 70 words per minute is considered a lot or fast. 80 to 90 words per minute. Any speeds exceeding 100 are considered professional or advanced. Okay, yeah, but I want to know, is it possible to type 120 words per minute? I want to say that was it. Yeah, it is possible, but it represents elite speed, placing typists in the top 1 to 2% of all users. I want to say, I need to contact her and ask I know for certain it was over 100. I know that for sure. Oh my God. I'm going to have to ask her how many words per minute she types, because I was on the ground. I was like, no freaking way you type that fast. That's faster than I think. That's insane. And so that's how she got that job. She's like, yeah, I've just always been really, really fast at typing. And so that she ended up getting a job that really played to her skill set. And we end up having the conversation about being a stenographer, but they have such a different keyboard, and you do have to go to school for that, because it's completely different how they do that. And the keyboard itself, yeah, it's very interesting. I ended up, after having that conversation with her, I looked up a few YouTube videos about stenographers, and I learned a lot. It's very interesting. So cool. So cool. Yeah, wild. So, compared to that woman in my YSA boards, I'm really not that fast. But according to Google, I'm pretty speedy with my typing. And you want to know why? The real reason I'm a fast typer, this is 100% true. If we were to trace it back, this is why I'm fast. My dad is a computer programmer, and he would have a ton of keyboards just randomly in these. I remember them being in the basement in these cardboard boxes of just these old keyboards, that he was throwing out. So there'd just be a box with, I don't know, 4 or 5 keyboards in it. Or there was just tons of keyboards around my house, and I freaking love the sound of the ones that are the pop ones that are standing up a little bit taller, kind of 3D. I really liked that click 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 clack noise of the keyboards. Not so much now, because now it's annoying, but back then, loved it. It was ASMR. So I would go downstairs and I would click 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 clack clack, and I would play Office and play Teacher and whatever, and I would type out. And I remember my dad being like, well, do you want to learn how to type? Because I would just click, click, clack, would just, playing. And I guess maybe it was annoying. Or maybe he wanted to teach me a skill. I don't know. But that was also in elementary school around the time, I think it was 3rd grade, third grade, something like that, where you start doing typing class. And you have the typing tests and whatever. So my dad would give me sheets of paper with words and stuff on it, and then have me type the words. And he showed me the hand placement, and then I would play these typing games in class in the computer lab. And then I would come home and want to play those games more. I remember them so vividly. There was like a zebra, and there was certain music that it would play, and it would have all the words. And I loved that. I found it to be so relaxing, and my addictive personality really came out with the game, with that particular game. Oh my gosh. I was all over it. I could spend a solid 30 to 45 minutes, which again, as like a third grader, I was locked in, and I could just be typing for freaking, for like, I don't know if I would have sat down for an hour, but I know, who's to say? Maybe I did. I do know for sure I would spend like 30, 45 minutes typing, like very regularly, 2 to 3 times a week. I would be sitting down typing because I just really enjoyed the game. And then when I wasn't doing that, I would steal my dad's keyboards from downstairs, and I would bring them upstairs to my room, and I would type away, and I would write, I would write, papers and stuff. I would just like write stuff down, and then I would like place that paper in front of me and like type what I had written. Handwritten. I would do it twice. I'd like write something like a journal entry or something, and then I would like pretend to type it on this just keyboard. So that is why I can type really well, is I really enjoyed the activity as a child. And in 7th grade, was it 7th or 9th grade? One of the two. In junior high, there was a mandatory typing class that everyone had to take. And I do not enjoy anything to do with computers. That's not really my vibe. I got a dad for that, and now luckily I got some brothers for that too. Oh my gosh, and hopefully one day I'll have a spouse for that, because yeah, computer stuff, no, nothing gets me more quickly frustrated than a computer. Absolutely not. My brain, no, doesn't really, I don't enjoy it. I can do it, I am fully capable, but I don't like it, therefore I don't want to, and I'm going to choose any other route. And I demonstrated this in either 7th or 9th grade, whatever grade you had to take the mandatory typing test, typing class. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take a class for typing when I could take a sewing class, when I could do something I actually want to do, when I could follow my passions. So there was a test you could take to like test out of the class, but you had to type, I think it was a minimum of 65 words a minute, which, according to Google, very quick, very fast. I practiced for like a week prior to taking that test. I was typing. I was like, I do not want to take this freaking class. I don't want to take it. I don't want to go to a stupid computer class. That sounds boring to me. I want to take sewing. So I remember I took the test, and boom, I got, at that time it was 70 words a minute, and I felt like the coolest person, the most elite athlete. I was like, the things these fingers can do. I was so proud of myself. And I think that's probably why it's such a strong compliment to me today when someone says I type fast, is because I built that confidence in myself. And circling back, full circle moment to what we were talking about earlier about, trusting kids and allowing them to make choices and go after things and enjoy the pleasures in life. Like, I did not want to take computer class. I didn't want to. And therefore, I worked hard, and I worked towards my goal of being able to take the sewing class. And, I practiced this skill. I gained this skill, and then I knew I was gonna not have to take that computer class. And, like, the way that made me feel, knowing that I was doing something and I was gonna be one of the only people that didn't have to take the class, the way that made me feel so good. And just so on top of the freaking world, and honestly better than everyone. I don't think that that's wrong, because I'm sure that's how like the star soccer player felt as well. When they're just like, when you're just good at something and you're like, yeah, I am good at this, and then everyone compliments you and you're like, yes, and you know sometimes of course as a kid it inflates your ego and blah blah blah, and that can be an issue. And, I think some could say I have an inflated ego around my typing because it's not that great. But, I'll take the false confidence that isn't completely based on nothing. Like, I do have a skill. I will take that all day. It may be a little bit of average to some, but it makes me feel good to know that this is a skill that I developed, and I just like it about myself. I like that I'm a fast typer. Oh, man. And if I was teaching class, I'd be like, and I want you to think about what kind of things you like about yourself. The silly, mundane, little things that the confidence that you were able to build in yourself, or maybe others helped instill in you as a child, that it's like when you get complimented on that now, you're like, oh, like it means more, because that confidence came from action, and it came from you doing something. It wasn't just a false thing. So, just know one day if I'm sitting across from a man, kind of like him or something, and I'm typing and he tells me that I'm a really fast typer, I think that's going to do something for me. That's going to earn him major points. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, let me tell you the story. I've been a fast typer for a while now. It also does help that I've had jobs because of my typing skills. I really think that that's what led me into being like, I can be a receptionist. Because receptionists type and answer the phone. And those are two things I'm really good at. And I just felt like my skills would be wasted in retail. Or like at fast food or stuff. I was like, no. 16 years old, I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to be a receptionist. And I remember my mom being, doubtful. Not fully, but she was like, girl, you are 16. How are you going to get a reception job at 16 years old? Like, no, go work at a retail store like all your other friends, like everybody else. But I was like, no, I have typing skills that must be utilized, mother. And see where that led. Yeah, I was like a receptionist for 10 years. And I did great. And I learned all the hotkeys as well. That was the other thing that when I worked at the Lehigh Legacy Center, the rec center, they have on the keyboard for the register, most places have this, where rather than using the mouse, there's things called hotkeys, where if you press, like Control D or Control F or like F5 or certain things, it will have certain actions. They're just shortcuts on the keyboard, but most people don't take the time to learn them, so then they just end up clicking, and they'll click 4 different times rather than F4, F5, which will like jump you to the next part, right? Well, I learned all the hotkeys. So guess who was always on register when it was the busiest time of the day? That's right, me. Because I was the fastest on the keyboard. And I would teach everyone. I would show them. I'd be like, no, stop using the mouse. Get the mouse away. Use your hands, like use both hands. Use this hand on the 10 key to type in your numbers. You need to figure out how to do 10 key without looking. And then have this hand do the hotkeys. But no one wanted to do that. Also, I was the only person, or one of two, I think I was the only one, that was able to stamp with both hands. Because at the Lehigh Legacy Center, you have to get stamped when you go in for the basketball games or whatever. And, there are hundreds of people coming through that door all at once. And tell you what, they don't want to be stamped. I'm telling you that right now. They don't want to stamp. Understandable. Stamps are stupid. But my job was to give you a stamp. And so I figured if I could do it quickly and not have to ink pad stamp. No. We are way too slow doing that one-handed. We're going to double hand this. So I had stamp in both hands. I was like, everybody stand back. The crowds would come through the door, certain time of day for the basketball stuff. When it was for swimming, I'd be at the register. When people were coming for swimming events, I was at the register. But then when it was time for the basketball games, I was at the stamp station. 2 hands, stamp in each, the ink pad up on the top. I was going boom, 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 boom. because while one hand was stamping, the other one was inking, and then we'd alternate, and then I would it was very impressive. Okay, you want to know what? There were many parents out there taking their freaking 4-year-old to basketball practice who gave me the nod. And I felt great I was like, wow, I am so good at my job. And I knew I would be, because I was a fast typer, so I knew I was just made for this job. And then I developed other skills like double hand stamping. And to top it all off, your girl can put on a wristband. Oh my God. I recently, I should probably be embarrassed to admit this, but I'm not. You know what? No, I'm proud. I'm proud to admit this because it was a skill I had and people talked about it. Back in the day, people would make comments about how great it was. So, when you have to have the stupid wristbands on you, when you go into like a park or a swimming pool or whatever. Yeah, at the Lehigh Legacy Center, in order to go swimming, you had to get a wristband on your wrist. And it's the one where you all know these type of wristbands. You peel off the little sticky part at the end, and then of course, it gets on your hair and blah, 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 or it's too loose or it's too tight or whatever. Nah. I know how to put on a wristband. And I recently was at an event 2 weeks ago where we had to do wristbands. And I showed off my skills. I was like, guys, let me show you how to do this. Because there is a technique, all right? And I taught it to everyone there. Did anyone follow through? Hardly ever. And I was like, guys, could you just watch? Watch again. It's not that hard. Why are we doing it your way when this is way more efficient and better and people like it? I've always been a control freak. So, first step to putting on a wristband, I should make a tutorial, is the person handing out their wrist, you make them flip it over so that their actual palm of their hand is face up. Okay, that's step 1, because guess what? There's no hair on that side of your arm. So we eliminate the hair issue. Second step, you put the wristband underneath, okay? Rather than, how do I describe this without showing you? You have, one end of the wristband in each of your hand, 2 fingers, a thumb and a pointer finger, all right? What you do first is you take one side, the non-sticky side, and you stick it to the sticky part, okay? You just the edge, right on the very bottom of this sticky portion of the rectangle. You're going to take the end and you're going to stick it to that. So now you're able to just take just the sticky part. So your hand has now let go of I'm doing it right and left-handed. So the sticky side's on my left, the non-sticky side's on my right. I take the right side, I stick it to the sticky part. My right hand is now free. Free to do what? Free to make sure to come up and over so that way I can fit it onto the wrist perfectly. So it's not too tight and it's not too loose. All right? What happens, the reason we're getting too tight and too loose is because we are sticking those 2 ends just on top. We're just kind of going anywhere on the end. But when you are able, I'm not explaining this well at all. It's actually very difficult. It's a very image-based thing I need to show you. But yeah, when you're only dealing with one side, you're able to measure it better and you're able to line it up perfectly. It was great. It was so great. I could do it so fast. And I care about those things because that's someone's going to be wearing that for a couple hours and no one wants to wear it in the first place. So if I'm going to force you to do something, I want it to at least be the least inconvenient way for you to do something or for you to have something, It mattered to me and it still matters to me. And I want you to know that a couple weeks ago when I showed this to a coworker, I said, back in the day I used to put on wristbands and I have a technique, and I showed the technique to my coworker. They were extremely impressed. Okay? They were. And I was like, yeah. Isn't that great? Isn't that the way everyone should be doing it? They're like, oh, yes. Wow. That's amazing. It's so simple. And I was like, I know. I taught everyone at work, and hardly anyone did it the way that I did it. It's okay. I was the double stamper. I was the hotkeys. I was the wristbander. I was working at work. I wasn't there just to stand around and flirt. That wasn't my game. I was taking people on tours. I was filling up basketballs with air. I was there. And for a while, I made a career out of it. And I was a receptionist for a long time. Still am right now. Went back for a minute. And I don't know. I feel like my train of thought just kind of ended. I was like, yeah. What can I say? I have a plethora of skills. Oh man, my kids are gonna be so proud of me one day when it's like, Mom, what did you used to do? What are you good at? And I'm like, sit down, little Billy. Let me tell you about Mommy's ability to type. If I go to a place with a wristband, excuse me, sorry, can I put that on my child? I show them. I show the worker how to do it. I'm like, so the key is to stick it onto itself first. The next time I go into the Lehigh Legacy Center and have to get a stamp, I'm just going to think to myself, back in the day, I used to be able to double stamp. That's what I'm going to tell my kids. This is the lore that I'm going to have for my children one day. Back in the day, I could do that with two hands. Nobody cares. But I think that's what makes it special, is that I care. That was actually something that built me into the person I am today. That's what built my confidence as a person. That just goes to show that you really don't need much to be a confident person, to build that confidence. You don't. It just is taking satisfaction in the things that you do well, no matter how insignificant they may be. They're not insignificant to the people who didn't have any hair stuck on their wristband, who was able to get through the line quickly. It was significant to them. I did make a difference. And don't we all, with our small little skills that we can just look at and say, wow, look at me. I have so many skills. So to anyone who thinks that they're boring and they're not good at anything, think again. That's so not true. There are absolutely a million things about you that are probably, to you, as small and insignificant as typing and putting on wristbands and double stamping. But you know what? If it's significant to you, it matters. And that's the message of today. There we go. Oh, thanks for sticking with me through this ride. Thanks for being here. I had every intention of telling you about the 12 million things that I watched. But, maybe what I'll do is I'll just keep recording, but I'll release it as a separate episode talking about the things that I watched. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So stay tuned for part 2. That's going to be coming, I don't know, soon. Love you all. Thanks for listening to my thoughts on life. This has been Life According to Nikki.